You're listening to Contesting Wrestling, the podcast where we take a look at professional wrestling from a variety of perspectives, and we pick it apart a little bit.
We make them fight.
We make them
perspectives.
Fight. That's how professional wrestling goes. We take things and we make them fight. My name, as usual, is Dr.
That's how you raise children, too, right?
That is not how you raise children, Ben.
you make the baby and then you put them in the pit and they fight.
I mean, that's how the Von Erichs and the Harts did it.
Yeah,
and that worked on a limited basis. But that's also really cruel.
Yeah, I guess so.
Mixed results at best.
Yeah. Damn.
I bet I can find an ethical theory to support it.
I mean, of course you can. That becomes your job as a philosopher, right?
Sort of.
Yeah, well, my name is Doc Diamondfire, wrestler, wrestling commentator, wrestling historian. I've been in the business for, around 15 years. Not quite, but if anybody wants to call me on it, have fun. I'm joined by my co-host, Professor Ben Abelson. Ben, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I'm happy to be here with our guest, his third appearance now on Contesting Wrestling, host of the Wrestling Time Machine podcast and the Nerdfict Strangers podcast, the king of all space, Bobby Fischer. Welcome back, Bobby.
It's good to be back. I am really excited to get into tonight's topic.
So you had the idea, and this is actually something that has been requested by some of our listeners in the past. We weren't able to do it while Evan was here, which would have been cool because of his music background, but I'm not exactly sure, and this is going to be part of kind of my perspective on things here. I don't know how relevant his music background actually would be when it comes down to it. But anyway, Bobby, your idea was to talk about wrestling theme music.
Yeah, wrestling entrance themes are kind of, it's part of the pageantry of professional wrestling, and a theme can make or break a character.
Absolutely, yeah. So, okay, I'm going to start off with a rather inflammatory statement that's perhaps an overgeneralization, and then we'll kind of walk it back, and then I have a more kind of modest and precise point to make at the end of that road. So hopefully it won't take too long to get there.
You are, if nothing, an academic that lays out everything you're about to do before you do it. And once you're done, are you going to explain everything you just did again?
Perhaps. That is my training.
All right.
It'll be on the test.
Exactly. Pay attention.
Just give them all B's. I've been telling Ben for years just to give all his students B's. He won't do it. Something about ethics and keeping his job.
Yeah. They do mostly tend to get A's these days. I mean, come on, it's a fucking pandemic. If they show up, that's a lot.
I agree.
Don't let them hear that. They either get A's or they fail pretty much these days, because they either did something or they didn't.
Well, it sounds like the people that want to be there are showing up.
Exactly. All right. So here's the idea. Wrestling theme music is not good music. Right? From a musical perspective, like I will never sit down and just listen to an album of wrestling themes and get like a complete aesthetic experience out of it. It's never really happened before, and I don't think it will ever really happen. And I think there are a variety of reasons for that. And of course, this is my own personal taste. But I think there are some reasons why I have this impression. First thing is this. Wrestling theme music, like a lot of other things like film scores and even maybe video game music, and I expect some pushback from Doc on this one, are incomplete in and of themselves. Like they're made to serve some larger piece of art or piece of work. And so if you listen to them by themselves, you get the impression, or I get the impression, that something is missing. Now, with video game music, compare that to, say, the work of like the Mini Bosses or Power Glove, who cover video game themes and arrange them. Yeah. They arrange them so that they become complete artworks in and of themselves. They fill in all the stuff that would be missing just listening to the original game score. I think, at least that's what I think.
I won't.
I love Power Glove.
Oh yeah,
great.
hell yeah! And they do wrestling themes too.
They do.
They do a killer fucking sexy boy.
But yeah, I won't push back on that too hard. I mean, you include like film scores in that too. The pushback that I would have is that there are lots of people who really like film scores and also, really like video game music. But like when I started listening to video game music kind of standalone, it was still very like, I don't know if niche is the right word, but it was almost an act of rebellion. It's like, well, I'm just going to listen to this. But now it really depends on the game you're talking about. Like some games, the musicians are trying to make pieces of music. In other games, they're just trying to complement it. Just last week, a symphony orchestra played arranged versions of the score to Final Fantasy VII at Carnegie Hall. So I'd say that there's some legitimacy there. But
sure.
But in general, your point is certainly true. Stuff like that is made, and including wrestling themes, is made to complement something else. A wrestling theme is meant to have crowd, possibly commentators, as sound behind it.
And wrestlers in front of it.
And wrestlers in front of it.
Sort of to Bobby's point at the top, which is that the main purpose of the wrestling music is to make you care more about the wrestler. And that sort of brings me to my second point, which is that more even than the video game music and the film scores, wrestling music is commercial. It is more like a jingle for a commercial. It's helping to sell something. And that in turn, at least for me, sort of diminishes it aesthetically immediately. Like, and that happens to me with songs that I love that I then hear in commercials. Right? It sort of takes away from the like intrinsic value of the music, of my experience of the music when I've come to associate it with something that it's supposed to be selling. And I think that's true of songs that weren't originally wrestling themes that have become wrestling themes. Like I can't just sit and listen to Cult of Personality, it is become only CM Punk's theme song, and it's a weird thing with like Where Is My Mind, which like that was the ending of Fight Club, right? Like that became the ending of Fight Club for me. And now like I can't really buy into it completely as Orange Cassidy's theme for that reason. And you'll notice too that like when songs are adapted as wrestling themes, they very often have to trim them down and simplify them, right? Like Ruby Soho's theme, Ruby Soho, comes in right on the chorus, right? Because a wrestling entrance doesn't allow for the kind of dynamic nuances of a song. Like I was thinking recently of Monster Magnet's Negasonic Teenage Warhead, that I was like, oh, that might be a cool theme. But listening to it, it just speeds up and slows down too much. There are like long portions that like wouldn't work. You could cut it up for it, but what did Monster Magnet do? They wrote fucking Live for the Moment for Matt Hardy, which is just a really dumb version of Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
And I'll point out something about that track and several tracks that wrestlers use. If you listen to the various albums that they put out of these songs, usually the songs are structured a little differently, and the versions that they come out to cut to the chorus when you actually listen to it on the CD, it doesn't actually start at the chorus.
Right. I will say one thing about Cult of Personality. It's one of the few songs used as a wrestling theme these days where they do use the whole fucking thing.
Well, it starts with that hook.
Right.
The hook of a riff,
Right.
That's okay. So
cool riff.
When I talk to people who are getting into wrestling about wrestling music and about what music they might want to use, everybody has a million ideas, and that's great. But one of the things is, they'll say, well, should I use X and Y song? And it'll be something with like, a 90-second intro or a 60-second intro or a 20-second intro. And I'll ask, are you going to edit the intro out? And they're like, it's like, what? Not yes or no. Like, what do you mean edit the It's like, yeah, the feeling you get when you're working out or whatever, and you hear the whole song for 4 minutes, you're going down the aisle and the song is going to play for 15 seconds, most likely, at the indie show that you're going to be wrestling at. If the point you want to make with the song isn't made in that 15 seconds, then it doesn't matter what you're coming out to. And if you're making the audience sit through a long intro before you come out, you're just pissing them off. If you're trying to piss them off with it, that's kind of another story. But you're not. You just think it's a cool song.
Countless guys at indie shows we went to over the years, Doc, was just like, I don't know who you are. I don't care about you yet. And you're making me wait to see you. This is not endearing me to you.
I'm waiting,
right off the bat.
I'm waiting to see the guys that are wrestling in the next match. Can you come out, please?
Yeah, and like get your fucking 2-minute match in there and lose already so I can see the guy that I paid for. Yeah.
That's a little harsh, but I stand by all of it.
No, definitely.
So to Ben's kind of original point about the rant, like not just sitting and listening to wrestling music, I'm kind of the exact opposite. I will absolutely sit and listen to like a playlist of different entrance themes and everything. I mean, Forcible Entry was one of the first albums that I bought like on my own.
Cool.
That's an incredible title.
So
too.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It has so many levels to it.
And there are some really good songs, as the kids would say, bangers on there. I really enjoy Live for the Moment, and I'm a pretty big Monster Magnet fan too. But there's also like Raven's theme on there. I think it's Stereo Mud is the name of the band, and some of the the 2 ECW albums that they released are again really great, because I mean you have because they couldn't license, they couldn't actually get Metallica to do it for the album. They got Motorhead to cover Metallica and do Enter Sandman.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
It is.
And that's kind of like the only place something like that could happen.
Yeah, no, so that, again, like actual bands, like, and even at Forcible Entry, around that period, they were getting actual bands to play most of the songs, right?
Oh, the major labels were willing to work with them to provide them artists, because the CDs were selling, they weren't selling 10 million copies, but most of them were selling 1 or 2 million, and they were cranking them out. Stereo Mud, that rings a bell. I saw Stereo Mud at like a radio promotional show, and they weren't headlining, and I enjoyed their, B-level nu metal album, but they got on that compilation, I can almost guarantee you, because their label, they were on a big label that was like, well, let's get this band around. Oh, the WWE wants a band to do a theme with a certain sound. Let's get Stereo Mud to do it. Maybe it'll catch on. I mean, that's how the music industry works. But yeah, definitely.
So in light of that, Bobby, I think, so here's my more modest claim that maybe you'll agree with more, which, and this sort of springs off of the things we were already saying.
This is the walking it back, right?
This is the walking, is that the purpose of wrestling music, like what makes a good wrestling theme song, is not necessarily what makes a good song in general. Right, like the purpose of creating a wrestling theme song and what you're aiming for is not necessarily the same thing that you're aiming for when you're sitting down to make a song just on its own.
I would absolutely agree with that, because with, like Ben was talking about, the whole point of entry is to tell the audience who your character is in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, there are a lot of wrestling themes that I think are terrible music, but are great wrestling themes. And a lot of themes that I love, songs that I love that like don't make as good wrestling themes, or actually wrestling themes that are musically interesting and kind of cool, but aren't great themes. And I have some examples of this as we go along.
Cool.
And it's not just entrance themes, right? Like video package songs, like "My Way" by Limp Bizkit, I think is a terrible song. But goddamn, that promo package for The Rock and Austin leading to WrestleMania 17 is heralded for very good reason. Like it gets you pumped for that fucking match.
Oh, and the Daniel Bryan "Monster" by Imagine Dragons video they played before WrestleMania 30 is up there. And I'm not sitting around listening to my Imagine Dragons CDs, but the video package they put together with that was perfect for Daniel Bryan.
And let's not forget the incredible moment of promotion that tugged at our heartstrings back in 1995, 6, 5, whatever.
It would be 96.
Tell me a lie.
Oh God.
A horrible, just disgusting piece of cheesy crap. But man, was it effective on my 10-year-old brain.
I cried
in making me care about
for Shawn
Michaels.
Yeah. Because of that shit. Well, that's the effective music for sure.
There we go. Yeah, and I knew it wasn't good music even then. Okay. So, Bobby, why don't we get into your examples or the songs that you wanted to bring up as being either good or bad themes?
Yeah, so I guess let's start on a high note as far as some really good themes. I think from the sort of more modern era, Shinsuke Nakamura's theme.
Great.
Definitely.
It's been my ringtone since 2016, I think.
Since it stopped being the Beth Phoenix theme.
Since it stopped being the Beth Phoenix theme. Yeah.
It's such a great instrumental piece for his character.
To me, it's also the closest thing to being like actually beautiful music. That they produce, or one of the closest. Definitely. Yeah. It rules.
Like the way the bass hits in that is just so foreboding. And like if you've never seen wrestling before, you look at Shinsuke and you maybe kind of have like this like he just almost looks unassuming, and as he comes to the ring you just kind of get the feeling like, oh, somebody is
gathering power.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant the way that when he turned heel today, they wanted to harden it so it would be harder for the crowd to sing. So they add a guy rapping in Japanese, a language most of the people that hear it don't know, so they can't really sing along to anyway. And I think that's a brilliant piece of business right there.
Yeah, it's also so unnecessary. It's like,
right. It sounded good though. I think every version of his theme has been good.
Well, I think the really cool thing now, I don't know if they're still doing it, but they were the last time I was watching Weekly. They had Rick Boogs come in there and actually shred over it.
Yeah. Nakamura and Rick Boogs are now an act together. He plays the guitar, Nakamura dances, and he's defended the Intercontinental title about twice in the last 7 months. So I'm considering that a win.
That was their whole segment on SummerSlam.
Yes. They didn't have a match. Nakamura is still the Intercontinental Champion, and he's not having matches for it most of the time. He's just holding the belt, and Boogs is there. Occasionally, Boogs has a match. I don't know. I watch occasionally now.
Looking forward to the Rumble. That'll be the first thing I'll have watched since day one, I think.
I'll never miss the Rumble.
Which was the last thing I watched since... What was the last pay-per-view?
I don't know.
Survivor Series? Or was there one after that?
I think it might have been Survivor Series.
Anyway.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, good choice. So Nakamura's theme.
Yeah, I think that's like a universally beloved theme. Like that's a definite like a clear winner for sure.
Yeah. So that I think is one of the better themes of kind of the more modern era, because I think a lot of people will agree, like, since they've gotten rid of Jim Johnston, like they kind of unceremoniously just kicked him out the door, and they switched over to doing CFO $.
They did Nakamura's theme, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
The original one, I think so.
Yeah, but the bulk of the CFO $. Themes almost all kind of sound the same. And it's this very generic, just kind of like, I've heard people describe it as like butt rock. Like it's just...
It's very synthy.
Kind of all wrestling themes are butt rock. This is kind of part of my point. Like, they all do, or almost all do, one sort of thing, which is get you pumped up. That's why nu metal fits so well with wrestling.
Oh, for so long.
Right.
And before nu metal, it was like, and I know you're going to talk a bunch about WCW themes, like that was the most butt rock of any themes, right? Like, just like, The Sting theme. I'm talking about like mid '90s WCW themes.
Oh, like the Man Called Sting.
The Man Called Sting was basically the same song as American Made. The Hogan one.
And they were both the same song as Steinerized for the Scott Steiner and the Rick Steiner.
Exactly. Yeah.
They were all on a record together, I think. I don't know where all that was released.
We were still unable to figure out who composed that music, right? Like that's deeply hidden.
It's not as deeply hidden as you might think. A lot of those themes in WCW were composed, the ones that weren't just licensed production tracks from gigantic corporate music galleries. A lot of it was composed by Jimmy Hart, and there was another guy, I'm trying to remember.
But not Man Called Sting. Yeah. Man Called Sting was before that.
Right. They used, I can't remember his name. There was another composer that they've used, and I've seen him mentioned a couple times because there's still like a clamor for a lot of WCW music that was never really released. Stuff like I'm just going to use this as an example, which is Avalanche's theme, right? When he was he was Avalanche in WCW. Yeah, Tenta. And like, it was never released. We all just know that it's Jimmy Hart basically ripping off the actual Earthquake
which he also wrote.
Right.
And I think the other composer might have been Jimmy Papa, but I'm not 100% certain on that.
Jimmy Hart's stuff was very jingly, right? Yeah. It was very like, I'm going to make a little ditty for this guy.
Well, he had a top 10 hit in the 60s, in his rock and roll band. So he was definitely trying to play the format.
Right. But that earlier WCW stuff was just kind of like, if you're like, write a song about my name. And like the first thing comes by, it's like, Doc Diamond Fire. King.
And the other composer, the other composer that WCW used, this is the other guy I was thinking of, who actually worked with Jimmy Hart a lot, is a guy by the name of J.J. McGuire. So they really had like 3 composers in WCW. And yeah, I mean, like Ben was saying, like a lot of the mid 90s music was just, not that the early 90s stuff was any better, but the mid 90s was like especially just completely generic.
Definitely.
Yeah. And Eric Bischoff has talked a little bit about that on 83 Weeks, where he's talked about, well, I didn't really put a lot of stock into what entrance music was and what it could do for the characters. That's why, like, when you watch like WCW Monday Nitro, for example, like the entrance themes themselves and the actual like ring announcing, the audio on that is turned down so low.
Oh, as opposed to the WWF, which always really amplified it. They wanted their themes to be iconic and special. The WCW managed to get some iconic and special themes.
Yo, they killed it with the NWO theme.
Yeah.
That was a stroke of brilliance for sure.
Which is also a piece of licensed production music.
Right. It's even music.
Like, yeah, all of the great WCW themes just happen to just also be licensed production music that they got, like Goldberg and Sting's theme. Like the iconic Crow Sting theme is, production music. It's really great. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot better compared to like A Man Called Sting. But
and then there were like the rip-offs of popular songs. Like DDP had the Smells Like Teen Spirit rip-off, and Raven had the Even Flow one.
Man, that Smells Like Teen Spirit one was so close that when they had to redub a bunch of stuff for licensing, when they put it on the network, they had to redub it with another rip-off of Smells Like Teen Spirit that wasn't quite as close.
Was it that, or was it that they just didn't own the WCW music for one?
They used plenty of WCW music. I mean, they did also not use a bunch of WCW music. It could be that.
Gotcha.
I wouldn't be surprised if with the dubbed WCW themes, WWE just didn't want to put out the money to relicense them.
Well, as long as we're on these WCW themes, one of the tracks that I had like selected as one of my good ones today was the Booker T theme, because it followed him for all these years. You know,
oh hell yeah,
it's become the Booker T theme. It was the Harlem Heat theme for several years, and then he used it in almost his entire singles career, including his TNA run. He's had a version of this track for a little while. He had a song called "Can You Dig It" that the WWE was selling on one of their CDs, and then it immediately turned back because it was so iconically linked to him. And I think that's what I like about it. It was a very successful theme. You think of Booker T when you hear the music, and the music itself is appropriate for, you know, coming down the aisle, and it hits you immediately in every version of it.
Yeah.
Was that a bit of like canned production music or whatever, Bobby, that they found?
I believe so. A lot of the information I'm getting here, I'm pulling from a great website called Xylot Themes. I highly recommend anybody who's curious about entrance music to check that website out. Like, I've been working on, you know, on my Fire Pro roster, right? And I'm finally in the letter D for like that huge project. And it's like, yeah, there are so many like WCW themes and ECW themes that are hard to find. And yes, the theme that Doc mentioned is called Rap Sheet, and it is a licensed theme.
Huh.
Well, there you have it. You know,
It's
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the WWE recorded another version of it,
Right.
but still, that's how
And
that goes.
added "Can You Dig It, Sucka"
Right.
at the top.
yeah. It's just different enough.
All right, so your first good theme was Shinsuke. What was the second one, Bobby?
So my second one was so hard to kind of narrow down, but as I tried to think about what the second theme for me would be, I went with, kind of more classic era, and I went with Undertaker and the Graveyard Symphony.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because there had been other wrestlers who had experimented with using sort of more traditionally classical music, Randy Savage,
Pomp and Circumstance.
You had, Ric Flair.
Thus Spake Zarathustra by Strauss.
Yeah, all of that was kind of, it was all great. And Jim Johnston took this kind of sort of generic funeral dirge music and turned it into something that was completely iconic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it is clearly recognizable as a funeral march, yet is totally distinctive as the Undertaker's funeral march.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a big Undertaker mark, despite Mark Calloway the person being kind of reprehensible, but I would say Undertaker I don't think has ever really had a bad theme. Even if you don't like Limp Bizkit, Rollin' is a great theme for the American Badass.
And so was American Badass.
Yeah. The additional production that they put into some of those songs where they would get, for American Badass, for example, they used a bit from the Return promotional package where you have the creepy little girls going Are you scared? And then boom, it hits.
Yeah, even that You're Gonna Pay song it's terrible. It's a terrible song,
but it worked.
But it was perfect for the Undertaker at that time.
The instrumental version before they added lyrics is a lot better.
That is a great example of Jim Johnston butt rock right there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. The lyrics killed it, but I mean the instrumental version of it was really
They had
solid.
that one vocalist on every track around that time. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's on the Eric Bischoff theme. I think he might have been the guy who sang The Big Show. It's just that one beefy, aggressive male rock voice that they used for everything.
Yeah. And I mean, you could go on all day about some of the great themes in WWE. I mean, a lot of them, again, I think themes kind of peaked in the Ruthless Aggression era, and then kind of after that it's never really been as good, I think Brock Lesnar's is one of the best themes that they've ever put together too, because it's you can hear that and instantly, like, you're just ready to do that kind of like
the little
that,
dance, the little Lesnar dance.
Yeah, that little sort of like athletic, bounce that he does. And it's just
I still hear Taz in my head going, well, here comes the pain.
Yeah, great call.
Yeah. And it was like the music itself was great, but the intro to that where it just kind of like zeroes in before the music actually hits.
The sound
on Lesnar's theme is so
That's
good.
so important. The noise beforehand. Like we already mentioned Punk, right? The noise at the beginning of Cult of Personality. Of course, the glass shattering at the beginning of Austin's theme.
Yeah.
Well, even now Punk has the static before the riff.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. And I mean, you might, like, Austin's theme might be the best ever.
For Austin. It's such a simple piece of music, but yeah.
Right. In some ways, it's the most generic, but it works. Yeah. It evokes everything that you want to. He's a badass who's gonna come.
What do you got on the good side, Ben?
Let's do the good ones before we get to the bad ones.
Let's go through the good ones. As Bobby's already given us 2, and I've given you 1. Let's see what you got.
All right, so I have 2 that one of them is an example of what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Which is Bryan Danielson in Ring of Honor using the final countdown.
Oh yeah.
Right. Which is a terrible song. It's. I mean,
everybody
we
loves
could argue
the final
about its
countdown,
virtues,
Ben.
but everybody loves it. For various reasons,
Yeah.
But this was the perfect use of it, right? This like cheesy, overblown, pretentious, ridiculous ballad.
Yeah.
Was everything that Bryan Danielson, the character, was in Ring of Honor, and everything the Ring of Honor fans were.
Yeah.
And so the freaking Hammerstein or the Grand Ballroom Manhattan Center all proclaiming it's the final countdown together with Bryan Danielson was like the perfect encapsulation of what it felt like to be a Ring of Honor fan at that time. Like, we are wrestling nerds.
Oh, very much nerds. I mean, it was totally true.
And this man is the vanguard of our nerddom.
He still is.
He still fucking is.
He went from that to Ride of the Valkyries because why not?
Right.
You stop
a little fucking Wagner.
Yeah.
Because, which is about as freaking pretentious and nerdy as you can get when it comes to even classical music. I mean, of course, Ride of the Valkyries is something we've heard in commercials and is popularized, but Wagner himself is one of the more like obscure, difficult to digest composers. Yeah. Bobby, you were going to say.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, Danielson using Flight of the Valkyries, I think is absolutely perfect because it's like, yeah, on the one hand, it's really kind of nerdy and cheesy and almost even obscure. Like, how many wrestling fans have heard of Wagner before, Ride of the Valkyries, right?
Right. They could probably identify the melody,
other
but
hand,
that's about it.
Right. Yeah. But on the other hand, like, it really works for Bryan because he's able to back it up. Like, the sort of grandeur and I used this word before, but like a sense of almost like foreboding that comes with that and the way it builds, like he's able to back that up as his character in the ring with the ring work that he does.
And I actually really like the new AEW theme that starts out with Ride of the Valkyries and then the beat drops and it's still kind of Ride of the Valkyries,
right.
but modern. And that's also a great representation of Danielson, who in some ways is a very old school style wrestler, but is still the cutting edge of pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Right.
That all makes sense.
Mm.
All right, well,
I was still disappointed that they didn't use the final countdown that first time he came back. But apparently it was prohibitively expensive, even for Tony Khan, who's willing to shell out for lots of stuff.
You do have to have like kind of a cost analysis on it in terms of like how much you're going to price, what you got, especially when you're like Europe dealing with the final countdown, the only thing that's making your band any money. And you think, oh, well, who else is like going to use it? But no, it was just used in like a Geico ad, which I'm sure they got paid handsomely for, And and you gotta know what your shit is worth.
They couldn't use Jane by Jefferson Starship for Orange Cassidy.
Yeah.
And that, that was in Wet Hot American Summer.
Yeah.
That's why it's Orange Cassidy's theme song on the Indies. And yeah, that probably cost whatever film studio that was a ton of money.
Who knows? The Pixies are cheap.
Yeah. All right. That song has already been devalued quite a bit.
So
okay, you want to give us your second?
I'll give us my second good one. Is we were talking about how the Attitude Era really peaked with themes. I picked the DX theme because it was a gigantic departure from everything that they had done beforehand. It marked that this act is different, everything around it is different, and from that act, the entire WWF changed. And I remember being in high school when that was actually cool, Don't make no mistake, a big part of the wrestling getting cool was the fact that the music changed.
Mm-hmm. That was a hell of a riff. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was,
Are You Ready?
A very clear rip-off of Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
But,
right.
But they weren't going to get actual Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, it had a...
yeah.
There was either the version with the long intro or there was the short version that just started with Break It Down or whatever. It was all, it worked. Mm-hmm. It worked incredibly well. I think that's what I'm really grading it on because it was very... Mm-hmm. I don't know if influential is the right word I'm looking for, but it definitely marked a changing of the times, especially for Shawn Michaels, who has, another one of the most iconic wrestling themes of all time in Sexy Boy.
Right.
But it marked
another Jimmy Hart classic.
And I think that it marked that Shawn Michaels was going to be different now. Or Shawn Michaels is the guy we all thought he was this whole time.
Speaking of Jimmy Hart classics, Bret Hart's theme music.
Mm-hmm.
I think you also wrote Ultimate Warrior, right?
He definitely wrote Ultimate Warrior.
2 fucking rocking ass songs. And Ultimate Warrior might be the most exciting entrance music ever.
It's a fairly simple riff, but it works.
It's hard, yeah. It's hard not to feel amped when you hear Warriors theme.
On that note, for something a little more modern.
Something waist level and shake it.
And shake it. I really like Edge's theme.
Yeah.
It's cool that he's using the Brood theme now too. When he starts with the Brood theme and then goes into.
It depends on what appearance he wants to make. People like the Brood entrance, so he does the Brood entrance.
But the one that it starts out with the "You Think You Know Me," and then it goes into this crazy guitar shred thing, and this song by Alter Bridge, who is a band that I would never listen to, but it's a huge soaring hook. That, like, to me, all right, so what is Edge? Edge is this brooding 90s kind of character who showed up 10 years too late, right? And is not cool, and that's why he didn't work as a babyface, right? He is a post-grunge icon. And
I can see
he had, like, an iconic post-grunge song, right? With this soaring hook, the shreddy guitar solo, not a whole lot of substance to what he's saying or to the song itself, but to me it perfectly encapsulates Edge, and it also gets you pumped up and ready for his match. So what's the guitar player? Matt Tremonti?
I think it's Mark Tremonti.
Mark Tremonti, yeah. Hell of a guitar player. Not much of a songwriter from what I've heard.
Well, that's more important.
Torn was cool. I've just been listening to the what's his name, the punk rock MBA.
Yeah.
I watched his video on progressive rock.
Yeah.
Last night.
I should check that out.
And so it's I think he's conflating a bunch of different things, but his general point is just like musicianship, and skills at playing instruments does not make good music necessarily. Does not by itself make good music.
Right, not by itself.
I think he's right about that. But yeah,
now,
but Bobby, you don't like this song.
I don't like it as Edge's theme. I think, like, on the one hand, because it's kind of a bad song, this kind of gets back to something Ben was saying, where because it's kind of a bad song, like it gets you ready to hate Edge as a character, right? But like my thing with Edge's theme is like, I think Never Gonna Stop was such a perfect theme for him. The hook in that song where Zombie's like, scream if you want it, I want it more. Like that could work so well for a babyface or a heel.
But I think definitely better for a babyface. I don't know. That song always felt a little flat to me. Like there needed to be a little bit more like dynamics to it for Edge's theme. Like because you know he comes out because there's a few different like steps to his entrance, right? He comes out, he appeals to the crowd either in like a babyface-ish way or a heelish way, in a really excited way, and then he slows down and does sort of slow march to the ring. He's got his big pose with the horns in the air, which is cheesy as fuck, and the big unnecessary pyro and all of that. And I think he needed something like the On This Day that, you know, does does speed up and slow down a little bit. Whereas Never Gonna Stop is just that one kind of note the whole time. But that was a good theme too.
I think Never Gonna Stop was better for him when he got to the ring faster. Kind of to agree with the both of you. You know, when he was at that level in his career, he hadn't quite earned the 2.5 minute intro yet. Once he got it, he needed something with more, you know, parts, I think. But it fit him very well when he was using it.
And there was nothing cooler than the way Edge would get into the ring, that sort of like smooth slide right in.
He almost looked like he was going to slide out the other side a few times.
Right. It's crazy watching Day One and seeing like he still kind of has the coolest entrance of anybody in wrestling right now. It's sad, man. It's sad.
It's kind of sad.
No one else is really doing it to that level.
Yeah. It's the entrances in WWE and even the music kind of suffers from like the same problem a lot of the NXT talent and stuff had been suffering from the last couple of years, which is there's just a level of homogeny to it where it's just like there's no sort of like I guess big entrance moments anymore.
There's nothing distinctive about any of them.
Right.
Yeah. It's just come out to this butt rock, your last name is going to be up on the Tron, and that's it. You don't even have Titantron videos anymore.
Wrestler Mick slaps his leg.
But the Titantron sure is big. It is big. It's the entire it's the entire set now as a screen.
I mean, they've worked very hard over the years to put the brand above everything. And if you're not letting any of your characters sort of rise above the brand, they have to be sort of generic and homogenized in that way. They have to be replaceable.
Yeah, but that sucks.
Interchangeable. It does suck.
It does suck.
But yet it's like WWE's bottom line is better than ever.
Yes.
Right? It's like, remember when we had like themed pay-per-view sets?
That was nice.
That was better. The big old hooks for Backlash or whatever that they had.
Or like the kind of like industrial graveyard for Judgment Day.
When CM Punk referred to WrestleMania as, you know, a 4-night buy one get one free extravaganza, he really hit the nail on the head. Yeah. It's just it's quantity over quality.
It's too much.
Over and over. Yeah.
So what's your other good one, Ben?
Well, no, I had my two good ones. It was the Final Countdown and Edge's theme.
Edge's theme. Edge's theme, right. Good. Well, shall we...
Let's get to the bad
Shall
ones?
we take a turn? Let's take a turn. Bobby, you want to start us off with the theme that you consider to be a bad wrestling theme?
So my number one worst theme is the American Males.
That's so like American males.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Oh,
I kind of
boy.
like that one.
It's
American males.
It's so
American males.
And it's just such an interesting thing that kind of like speaks to WCW's problems kind of overall with creative. Like, you had these characters, you're going to team them up, and the whole gimmick is that they're Chippendales dancers, right? Okay, great. They're supposed to be, you know, sexy, young, good looking guys, and they're supposed to, you know, kind of have that like Shawn Michaels appeal where it's like they're eye candy for the ladies, right? And they come out and the music just does not match at all what they're going for. And they don't really commit to the characters. And it's just the same two words over and over in this really weird nasally voice. And it's just awful. It's the most annoying theme in WCW.
To me, it speaks to what I was kind of saying about the Man Called Sting theme and whatever, where it's just like the first thing that you can think of with the name. You know, like the first rhythm or melody that comes to mind when you say the name, and that's what you go with. No further thought is put into it.
It's like, does the songwriter know that it's a wrestling theme even?
Bobby Fischer, he's the king of all space. Bobby Fischer, he'll be right in your face.
See, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, they would have gone with that.
You know, like the early 90s WCW music was bad, but it was still kind of listenable. Like Mr. Bang Bang for Cactus Jack is fun. Like, it's bad, but it's fun. Like, Sting's theme is absolutely nonsensical.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
The American Males theme has nothing to do with anything.
And your other bad theme is also from WCW, right, Bobby?
My other bad theme from WCW is Lex Luger's theme from the mid-90s, like when he returned to WCW as part of like the Monday Night Wars, right?
That one, right?
I mean, that was definitely from one of those libraries. They used to use that music at the same time on WWF Superstars during the ads for the hotline. I you know,
like, it's so generic, and Luger is like, he's supposed to be this big get for WCW, right? Like during the Monday Night Wars. Oh man, he was just on Raw, and now he's on Nitro, and this is the first guy to really jump ship, and well, not the first guy, but like this is a really big get for, you know, to be on Nitro and everything. And he's almost immediately just completely neutered as a character. He teams up with Sting, and then he eventually joins the Dungeon of Doom. And his character is just, there's nothing to it. Like, he doesn't have anything about his look that's unique in WCW. It's just plain black trunks. That's it.
He's muscular.
You know? And it's like, you could argue, well, you know, somebody like Goldberg or Steve Austin wrestled in just black trunks. But yeah, they kind of were able to make up for it in other areas.
I was arguing on a recent premium episode that the Narcissist was by far the best Lex Luger of all of Lex Luger. Because there was something to it.
Yeah.
You know? And also that the Narcissist to me was the best narcissistic, or the best
self-absorbed
powerhouse character ever.
Yes.
Like, they've never done that better.
They at least gave Lex Luger a character.
Yeah.
Like, in WCW, he was just the total package. Okay. If he's the total package, let's see him act like it. Oh, well, no, he's resorting to heel tactics. He needs Jimmy Hart as his manager to get anything done in the ring. And he's just, again, he's completely neutered as a character.
He still beat Hulk Hogan, though.
Well, that was a couple of years later. You know, they managed to build him.
It is funny that I remember that theme, because I don't remember a lot of the themes, and it is insanely generic.
It is so generic, yeah.
Somehow it's still, and I associate it so much with Nitro.
Yeah, like, you know, talking like Lex Luger could have really been something in WCW. I contend that he could have been a monster heel if they had just not put him anywhere near the microphone, because he's
not
atrocious. A good but yeah, you give him Jimmy Hart as a mouthpiece and you book him as a monster heel, the likes of like Ming, and you just have him come in and do stuff, and it's like, yeah, that would sell the total package bit. But they do everything wrong with Luger throughout his, I think, entire run in WCW.
I mean, they did everything wrong with most people in WCW at that point. Yeah. But yes.
Even when he did beat Hogan, like, he lost the belt again like a week later, and then they didn't mention it again.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I mentioned one of the bad themes that I had in mind, Emma's heel theme.
Oh, Emma's heel theme.
So when her face theme was this bubbly, weird, kind of cool thing.
It was strange and catchy.
Yeah. And then when they made her heel, it starts with that, and then it drops into this beat. That's kind of cool. So this was another example of what I was talking about earlier. It's to me, one of the most musically interesting themes. It's melodically interesting. It's rhythmically interesting. And actually, it was my ringtone in between Beth Phoenix and Shinsuke Nakamura. But it's not a great wrestling theme. It doesn't really tell you who Emma is. It doesn't get you excited for the match. It doesn't do what it really needed to do. So it's even though I think it's, again, one of the things that's closest to being interesting, aesthetically pleasing music on its own of wrestling themes, it fails as a wrestling theme.
That's certainly an interesting take on that, because it's not a bad piece of music, but you're right, it doesn't really represent anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas the Beth Phoenix music, like, really gave you the glamour and the pageantry, but also the power of the glamazon.
Yeah.
And it had that like Phoenix cry at the beginning of it as the intro.
Like a kind of regality to it. But yeah, Emma's didn't really. It was just kind of cool, funky beat. And my other bad theme is, and possibly the worst theme of all time in my eyes, and our friend Jason Doc talks about this a lot, so it came to mind. When Rob Conway broke off from La Resistance.
Oh boy.
He had some heat to him.
A little bit,
at first. And then he comes out and just look at me.
Oh, God.
And it didn't, you don't want to boo, you don't want to cheer. It's just like, to me, I'm just immediately disinterested with everything that's happening as soon as I hear that song. And it just, it made it hopeless for that guy. He was never going to get over.
Crowds got quiet so they could hear it. Right?
I don't know. I don't think they knew what to do with it. You know? But it was just so slow, and like it's pretty much just the vocal. Like there's not really very much accompaniment to it, and just look at me. But I guess it's so on the nose that it doesn't accomplish what it's saying. Like it didn't make me look at him.
Ain't he a sight to see?
And what does that even say?
Yeah, what I always liked about Conway's solo theme is, as bad as it was at least different. It wasn't like rock or anything. It had like this old, like 1920s kind of sound to it. And I dug that.
I mean, that's fair. It was definitely unlike all the other themes at the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
like with a better wrestler, yeah, maybe it could have worked.
No,
but
I think it was a heat killer.
Rob Conway.
I think it was a heat killer.
I don't think it was a great theme for a crowd. It needed more of a hard beat like the Rick Rude stripper theme had.
Yeah, you know? yeah. If it had something like that behind it, it would have worked better.
Something people could shake their butts to. Well, anyway, I got a couple of pretty bad themes, but I want to mention before I have an honorable mention, which is the British Bulldogs WWF theme. Not because I have anything against the tune, but because a lot of people miss it is a 14-second loop, and that's all that it is. There's no more theme than just the 14-second loop of just that. All right.
Of Oh Britannia.
Yeah. So I also want to bring up Bryan Danielson, who very early in his career used Self-Esteem by The Offspring for a couple of years.
Bad.
And it did not capture anything about the American Dragon at all. Here he is, this super rookie who already is one of the best wrestlers in the world, and for the first few years of his career, main eventing the first Ring of Honor show because he's so good. And he comes out, to a song about I can't do anything right because I don't have self-esteem, and then my girlfriend treats me bad. Damn. It's like, no, man, geez, you need a theme adjustment, which he eventually got. But that brings up a bigger point on indie shows, like people who use themes that they like the song, but it has nothing at all to do with their character. Nor does it engage the audience particularly well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to a lot of indie guys not really understanding what it is to have a character. And that it's not just you and the things that you like.
Right. Yeah. You can be just you all the rest of the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for, Doc, you touched on this really early, and I think it's the most important thing is like a good entrance theme tells you exactly everything you need to know about the character in 15 the first couple seconds, and then the 15 to 30 seconds it's going to take them to get to the ring.
I mean, we should mention perhaps the most important theme of all time that got it all started, really, Real American.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Hulk Hogan, I don't think he would have been the same without Real American.
Well, he had Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah.
Which worked.
But he couldn't use Eye of the Tiger.
Right. But Derringer's Real American I would go to bed at night after watching my WrestleMania 3 video with singing Real American to myself, and dwelling in the aura that it created, and then, and I still vividly remember WrestleMania 9.
Yeah.
When Hogan came back and won the title.
Yeah.
And, celebrating to Real American. Because at the time, that was something that I was excited about. We covered that in a premium episode as well.
Oh, just recently?
No, actually, no. We covered that in our last main feed episode with Will Fink.
All right, with Will Fink. Good.
Yeah.
Hi, Will. Right.
Yeah, Real American is a really great theme. I mean, it's so iconic for not just Hogan's character, but for what his character meant, like at that time, like this, 1980s wave of patriotism. And I mean, again, it's really kind of one of the very few perfect themes that is out there.
Yeah, it's always worked. It's always worked. So I have one more theme that I wanted to bring up as my other bad theme, and I think I don't know if this is the worst theme of all time. I think it's the theme I dislike the most, because mostly I think if the theme is bad, it's at least like really notable. But the theme that Rob Van Dam used in TNA, I think might be the theme that I dislike the most. It's very much a copy of a copy of a copy of Walk by Pantera.
It's way down the platonic ladder.
Yeah. And, it's the vocals, it's just the guy saying RVD's catchphrases, shortened versions of them. And I feel like it could...
Like which ones? Wait, how does it go? I can't...
Oh, jeez. There's a very sparse riff, and then the vocalist goes, Rob Van Dam. And then there's the counterpoint to that very sparse riff. And then the voice says the whole effing show. And then it repeats.
Play it for myself.
Yeah, play it for yourself.
Really.
If I need to edit 15 seconds out, I will. But like, let it play a bit.
Ooh, F-bomb in there. Red Terminator. Van Crushinator. What even is that? Van Assassinator.
It definitely wants to be something very badly, but it's you know, when you just have like a guitar riff and a dude shouting like, this is,
I mean, kudos for them for recording
it
with the F-bomb in there.
Yeah, I mean, they edited it out, of course, but
right,
and that's fine, you know.
And Van Crushinator.
Right. There is no Van Crushinator, but yeah. So I think that theme is awful. It very much represented what Rob Van Dam was doing in TNA, which was not much. Just kind of, you know, collecting a paycheck between big league runs. And just, you know, the first time I heard it to the last time I heard it, I really don't like it. And I think that's an accomplishment in and of itself. Yeah.
You know, it's a theme that it has been in discussion recently. Drew McIntyre has been trying to get his old theme back. Broken Dreams.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that one? Which
Definitely.
I thought that was one that I heard a lot playing SmackDown versus Raw 2011, which I played a lot, and that was stuck in my head all the time. And I thought it really sort of captured the like heel mentality really well. You know, I dream broken dreams, I make them come true. I make them for you. Is that
something like that? Well, his current theme is very much in line with the themes that they have now, and it's fine, but, I mean, there's not much to it. If he ever turns heel again, they definitely should dig up that old theme, because it's a great one. Definitely. And I see why he wants it back. It has so much more personality. Now that he has the personality to match it, because he has gone through such a transformation in the last 10 years, you know.
The new one is cool, but it's basically the Sheamus. He's basically Sheamus.
He's basically Sheamus.
He's the Scottish warrior.
Yeah.
Which is just another kind of Celtic warrior.
Yeah. Well, Sheamus is Irish.
Yeah, but I know.
Yeah. He's and Drew McIntyre is Scottish.
Yeah, but it's all Celtic.
But Sheamus is Irish, though.
Drew McIntyre has a sword.
Drew McIntyre does have a sword.
Yeah, but these go to 11.
Yeah. These go to 11.
Yeah.
That light they shine on Sheamus goes to 11.
All right. Any other thoughts about any of this, Bobby?
I would say to anyone who's out there who is aspiring to be a wrestler or on the independent scene, really do some digging on your character and figure out what entrance theme is going to work for you in the couple seconds that it's going to take, because the ramp on an independent show, even if they have one, is a lot shorter than the ramp in WWE. Like Ben was saying, you don't get a long entrance.
What do you want people to feel about you immediately when they hear your entrance? When they see you for the first time, they should instantly feel that they either like you or they don't.
Yeah. It's just like, you know, you can hear a theme like Goldust's, for example, and you immediately at least know the character is extravagant and there is a kind of like Hollywood quality to his theme, for example. Yeah,
definitely.
Totally.
And the Goldust theme, much like the Goldust character, was very unique when it debuted as well. Very different than what was coming before it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think about sometimes, remember the old Hasbro action figures? They all look different, right? Like each one was like a little cartoon.
Yeah.
And it was totally like had a different kind of body type. Sometimes they get a little wrong, but you know, and eventually they started kind of rehashing them, but they all had a unique type of physicality to them. And you know, as the action figures got more detailed, they also all the bodies all started to look kind of the same. Yeah. The attire started to look kind of the same, and that corresponds to the wrestlers as well, and it corresponds to their theme music.
Yeah.
Right? Like Bobby was saying before, everything has slowly been homogenized. I think gradually over time.
I blame largely the success of the Performance Center.
Mm.
You know, now that they train their own guys from the ground up the way they want, they train everybody like that, and they give them all exactly the same treatment with all of the same bells and whistles, and that includes the same kind of theme music. It's why everybody's name sounds the same.
And you don't have these journeymen who have each had their own unique path to the big show, you know, coming out of God knows where.
Right.
No, they're all either college athletes or nerds who got into indie wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for example, like I have an original wrestling character because I play wrestling games, right? And I think if you play wrestling games, that's absolute like that's the big appeal, making, you know, your kind of original character. And it's kind of evolved over the years, and the latest incarnation, which is this, you know, movie obsessed character, right? Like not necessarily like Goldust, but not dissimilar either. But like the entrance theme I kind of chose to go with was science fiction double feature from Rocky Horror Picture Show, because it's so kind of perfect for that character.
Show tunes work because show tunes in a lot of ways, you know, they know you gotta keep it hooked from the beginning. Like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then if you happen to be in a situation where it keeps playing, that works too.
Let's say one thing before we go about a genre of music that doesn't really exist anymore, but was kind of wonderful, though mostly awful in its time, which was the genre of wrestlers recording songs for people to listen to, not for their theme music, but just because that was the fun thing to do.
We're putting out a CD.
Like the Pile Driver album, the original wrestling album, the WWF Superstars from the 90s.
Brett, you sing, right?
Man,
the
what?
WWE originals.
Was that one? What was, I don't remember that one. WWE originals?
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of came out right at the beginning of Cena doing his rap character.
Yeah, but come on, go check out Bret Hart. Never been a right time to say goodbye. And tell me that he's not singing that love song about the WWF Championship.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful.
That's great. It's true.
That album is that was a big part of my childhood, was that WWF Superstars, the music.
Okay. Well, before we properly wrap, Bobby, would you like to plug all of the stuff you have to plug?
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at Space King Bobby. You can also check out the shows that I co-host, the Wrestling Time Machine and Nerdfix Strangers. Right now we are on a little bit of a hiatus while I deal with some mental health stuff, but we're going to be coming back here soon.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Sometimes you got to take some time off. We've done it. So check out Bobby's recordings. There's plenty of archived stuff. You've been doing this a long time, right?
Yeah, I mean, Nerdfix Strangers especially, the Wrestling Time Machine, we really just kind of started in 1996. We recorded the Royal Rumble 1995 watch along here recently, and that was a lot of fun.
All right,
Yeah.
and on our end, we have our Patreon at patreon.com/contestingwrestling. It has 98 or so
Yeah, by
premium
the time
episodes.
this comes out, maybe 99.
Definitely 99. Yeah, it's just about
Yeah.
time.
So we're gonna talk right after
Yeah.
we end here. We're gonna talk about what we want to do for the 100th premium
Right.
episode. So you guys can look for that.
Where we're gonna get all that happening. If you want access to all of that, it's $5 a month, and we post new episodes whenever we can. All right, so for Bobby Fischer, for Ben Abelson, the Professor, I'm Doc Diamondfire. This has been Contesting Wrestling. We love you.
Peace.
Bye.